The numbers are increasing in Nigeria, even though the numbers of those being discharged is also increasing.
That's a good one.
And one worrisome issue, of course, is the issue of stigmatization of the survivors, which could have a mental impact on them. To help us understand how this works out, we have two people who are going to discuss that with us this morning. We have Dr. Peter Ogunubi, who's a lecturer, consultant psychiatrist at the University of Lagos. Good morning, Dr. Ogunubi.
Thank you. Good morning.
And from Abuja, we have a professor of otorhinolaryngology. Laryngology.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Professor Titus Ibekwe, who's finding all of this very funny. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, I got the otorhino part, didn't I?
You did.
Yes. Now, let me start from Lagos, Dr. Ogunubi. There is the small matter, never mind my choice of words, of people stigmatizing those who have come out of this infection. How do you think that those who haven't had it should react?
Thank you very much. It is important to first of all establish one fact, and that is, why do people stigmatize certain conditions and they don't stigmatize other conditions? For example, I can come out and say, I'm diabetic. Oh, I have hypertension. I'm seeing my cardiologist. I have rheumatological issues. I'm seeing my orthopedic surgeon. Or people say it.
Yeah.
And then you don't feel anyhow. But you come out to say, I've been positive for Ebola or COVID or Lassa or have mental health issue. People run away. So we first of all need to establish the behavioral dimension to stigmatization. And then we'll now talk about how people should respond.
Is it because they feel that you can still infect them or what?
Well, there are many reasons, but I'll mention like 3 or 4 major reasons why people stigmatize certain conditions. Number one, when the causative organism or the causative factor or what is causing it is not known. And we are just trying to identify, people stigmatize. When people believe that there's no cure for a particular ailment, they stigmatize. When people, because they believe that if you are ill and I can treat you, you'll be okay. No problem, hypertension can be treated. But no cure, nothing, no.
Yeah, but there's no cure for cancer, and you're not stigmatized when you have cancer.
Well, as much as possible, the way cancer management has been put over the time, come early, we will give you chemotherapy, we give you radiotherapy, you will live for a certain period of time. It's not that immediately it strikes you, bam, that's the end. So people stigmatize. Then when they believe that touching you or moving near, they can be infected, they stigmatize by running away. So there are many other reasons. And then when the issue surrounding the ailment is not totally known, so there are area and aura of uncertainties around the condition, people stigmatize. Let's come back to COVID-19. Even we learned. Today you will hear one thing, it's airborne. No, it's no longer airborne, it's droplets. People that were positive, now they've turned back to negative. They can turn back to positive. They've gotten vaccine. No, they are testing. We have not unraveled the manifestation. It is cough, it is fever. Now it is diarrhea. No, sometimes it can even be inability to smell. So when people hear all these things, they continually get confused and they are afraid. You don't know who will be affected. No, it doesn't affect young ones. Children are exempted. Now 34 years, 50 years, they are dying. They say it's only 80 years old, Baba or Mama. So I am speaking as a behavioral scientist. When you hear this, then the aura of stigmatization will be there. What should we now be doing? And that is why I have established that when people have this perception, it is infectious, it can kill them, this and that. It may be wrong, but that is the reason why they are stigmatizing. Because you must go back to the genesis. So having now known the genesis, we will now ask ourselves, if these are the reasons they are stigmatizing, let us now begin to block each of those areas. Oh, it's killing people. Therefore, national registration agencies, experts begin to say, no, people are coming out of these things. People are getting discharged day in, day out. This and that. Really? Then they say, if you just touch like this, you will have no. It's droplets. When someone comes, use face mask and wash your hand. Then maintain social distance or physical distance. Okay. So you continue to destigmatize through massive education.
The word there is massive.
Massive education, because we need to. You'll be surprised. I spoke with somebody, one mama from my village, because I'm an Ijebu person. And I said, one show one that is, he's killing people anyhow. Once he just died. And I say, it's not. And you think Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt is not only Nigeria. Don't forget that an average of 50 to 60% of our populace are within the rural areas. And that is why transcription into dialects, into different languages for people, are you not been seeing pictures of face mask? Even one made with different things. Ropes.
Some made with pure water sachet.
Some put water sachet. Because people don't understand the principle. So people just know that, oh, I saw a video yesterday. Someone washed hands and now drank the water.
She talked about.
My body was shaking, but you can never blame them. That is what they think. So massive education, continue to showcase people that, and I love what Lagos State, they are doing. Every time we say, I have great news. We've discharged 9 people. This is, you will not know the extent is working on the mind of the populace. Wow. So this is not a death sentence. It's
Indeed.
very key that we understand that.
Professor Ebekwe, this matter of education, he used the word massive education. As one who is involved with educating people, how do we even begin to educate the nation? Because some people have mindsets that are already set. They've said that this is it, and there's no way out of this. How do we even begin to start?
Nota, thank you very much. Education is not an easy thing, and you must understand the mindset and the level of comprehension of the people that you are meant to educate, sensitize or change their orientation towards any particular mantra or any belief system. First and foremost is to conduct a survey of the level of knowledge that those people have first. You must come down to their level. Speak the language they understand. Use people whom they trust among them to be able to decipher the volume of knowledge that they have. And when you do this, you will be able to assess and impact what is lacking and what is needed. All right? That is how you will be able to come back to the drawing board and now design what you are going to use to educate the strata of the populace. Because the level of exposure differs. For instance, somebody is residing at point A, his level of knowledge will be different from another person living in B or C. As rightly said by my colleague over there, those who are living in our villages and in hinterlands, you don't expect their level of knowledge and understanding to be same with those of us who are exposed to some extent, who are literate to some level. So that is why massive deployment of education, orientation and reorientation is not an easy task. And you really need people who are trained for that. It's not what you pick anybody and request the person to go ahead and educate the populace. So you must be sure of what you're doing, be sure of what you are heading to, draw this strata of class of people who have the ability to impact this knowledge in the language and in the mannerism that the people will understand. You wouldn't blame anybody who stigmatizes, because one is that it is obvious that the fear of unknown is what drives people into doing the wrong thing. And secondly, human beings as we are, naturally we are protective. We try to protect and guard ourselves. And whereas the knowledge is not there, then wrong decisions are meant to be taken at any point in time. So we need to really, really do a lot towards educating the people and letting them know that this disease, COVID-19, is not as dreaded as it's being portrayed. You know, what am I saying? It's not as if this is not a dangerous illness, or we can see what it's doing across the globe, but to give hope and to explain that it's only about 3 to 5% of individuals who are exposed to disease, strictly speaking, most of the time, that will succumb to this illness. That when you compare it to a lot of other illnesses ravaging across our country, across our globe and climb, that is not as deadly as it may be. And a lot of us could have already come in contact with this illness, and our system have handled it. And we're okay now, walking around. So when we're able to speak to people in this language, communicate to them how they will really, truly understand, break it down to their level, then they will come to know. That spirit of empathy will resurrect in each and every one of us.
Okay,
We'll
Prof,
tend to
if
be
I may
our
come in here,
brother's
Prof.
keeper.
So what do you say
please.
to those, the elite, for instance, those who are supposed to be influencers of society, who are running away from helping to educate? They think it should be only the medical personnel or the government that should educate. But some of them are actually going through this illness, but they are not willing to come forth to educate the people who look up to them that, hey, this thing is something that you can actually go through and it will not take your life. What do you say to those kind of people?
Yeah, the fact here is having a knowledge base is different from just having exposure to academics, so to say. That's why you can also draw a distinction between somebody who is intelligent and somebody who is brilliant. It's not all same. Okay, when you are intelligent, there is a level of empathy that is integrated into your brilliance. Then you will be a robust person that has all. It's all about appealing to their consciences and letting them know that, yes, you're a survivor today, and therefore you should be able, it's showing gratitude to your creator when we come down to that level, and showing some some responsibility to the society, that you are coming out to let the people know that, yes, I'm out of it and I'm healthy today, and narrating your experience will have sort of giving first-hand information to individuals who hitherto have been doubting Thomases, even to what we are preaching as health personnel and individuals who are frontliners in this fight. So it is a collective responsibility. Survivors, yes, they have a big role to play. At the same time, the National Orientation Agency, they should step up their game. I mean every bit of this. They should step up their games, and it's not enough to, speak beautiful grammar on the screen and on different media houses and channels of communication. We should be able to realize that what we're seeing now should be escalated more, breaking this down in local dialects, local languages and dialects, deploying people that all the populace they respect. The leaders of religious houses, the traditional leaders whom their people will always listen to, should all be vanguards in conveying this information and in massive education of the populace. So when we all collectively do this, there's no doubt we're going to get a positive result at the end of the day. And it's not a one-off thing. It is a continuing education. It is something that should be ongoing. You should not beat your chest and say you think that you have covered enough and you relax. Once you do this, all the effort you have put in will wane. So we have to escalate this and keep on promoting this information in different languages, at different levels, at different backgrounds, through different measures and media across the country.
Okay.
Dr. Okunubi, still on the matter of awareness, yes, I see some known faces now telling us in local languages on television. But as you mentioned earlier, the bulk of our population is in the rural area. I'm sure a lot of them don't have access to channels television to see Omaumi talking to them or Dekola talking to them in Yoruba and all that. Do you think that government is leading the charge? Okay, he has said that we should all be involved in this awareness campaign. Do you think that government is leading the charge in this campaign to make everybody, including the women in the rural areas, the children in the rural areas, What I'm thinking about is when we were growing up, there were things called van tapes that they used to go to the marketplace with, go to the villages with, to go and campaign. I mean, do you think that any of that is going on so that the people will know what this is all about? Many still think it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, it's rather unfortunate. Why we will give, okay, I want to be very careful by using the word why I give credit to the government, because it's not yet Uhuru. Time will come that we may be able to give the credit, but not, we are still far from credit now, not to talk of ordinary pass. I think we must start from, it's like a proverb that says you look at somebody that has scoliosis, which is, that means bent spine, and you are comparing his load, and you say your load is bent, the way you are carrying it. And it tells you that you don't look at my load, look at my whole body, it's already bent. Let us start from the beginning. When you composed a technical committee on COVID, and there are no associations of healthcare professionals, no traditional rulers, no religious leaders. Profs just said something now, that these people trust certain sets of people. The principle of suggestibility comes to play, where people, when you tell them something, they are just very suggestible. They're okay. And this is the time to deploy it. Because you must understand the mind and the way the mind works. So some people, all they need to hear is, our imam have said it, our pastors have said it. That's all. So what is the composition of the committee? And what kind of advice are they giving? You can only give what you know. So we need to go. I'm not sure you name me, Nigeria Data Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, Association of Clinical Psychologists, Social Worker Association. I don't know whether traditional rulers. I'm not sure whether religious bodies, market women association leaders. I'm not sure. See, the truth is that in this fight against COVID, I want to sound one warning. We must never attempt to copy the Western world. We are a peculiar set of people, different behavioral pattern and thinking. We must deploy local resources and local mindsets. If you see that, oh, they are doing lockdown in America and London, you want to think lockdown will work, it may not work if we don't put in other preventive measures. Number two that I want to sound, a note of warning, is concerning the fact that we should not think that if this thing blows out of proportion, we can undo it. We can never. Bring 10 million ventilators. How many anesthetists do you have? How many technicians do you have that will measure the gases, that will measure the lungs function, that will do everything? If, for example, I'm a psychiatrist, if you give me one ventilator, all the people plugged there will die because I don't know how to use it. And I'm a doctor. Except you give me rigorous marathon intensive training. Are we ready for that? So, at Nigeria, we should just understand that prevention is cheaper, better, more laudable than cure. We should not even think of importing ventilators and co. It is all about preventions. And that is why massive education is very key. Because if you don't prevent this thing, once it gets out of hand, forget.
But how do you prevent this kind of thing if you have people who are feeling the symptoms, but they refuse to come forth? And these are respectable people.
And that's why Prof said it, that we continue to, I'm very sure after this program now, with what you say, Nyota, they will start coming out.
I hope so.
People have conscience. So we are now appealing to their conscience, because when HIV came then and was ravaging the land, until people started coming out, I'm positive.
Just hold your thoughts.
And this,
we'll just take a moment and we'll come back and continue the conversation. Please stay with us. Dr. Ogunubi, you were talking about the need to step forward and use our traditional mindset. I do know that some states, let me see, which states in particular came out to talk about the need to use a traditional rule. I think Ogun State or Cross River State and Kaduna, using the traditional institutions, the leaders of the traditional institutions and religious leaders to give out the palliatives so that they are not politicized. The question of politicization of this whole thing? Why should politics even come into this?
Well, why should it? It shouldn't. And that's why we will appeal to the conscience of those distributing from the high on top, the high level, the mountain top from Abuja. That is where everything flows down. That this is the best time to have good motive and good intention. We all know in this country that we have our system and we know how things work. We know in this country that if I want somebody in my village in Ogun State to get something, there are ways and there are venues through which I will pass it through. I will either go through a diocese or go through traditional rulers or somewhere. All I need to do is to get to the key person who knows how to distribute this thing. I can't stay in Abuja and drive my van to Port Harcourt or take a chartered plane to Lagos. Stay in Allen Avenue, distribute to people I see around that roundabout. Show camera. And so you come, begin to dish it out. And they will begin to play that one here for 10 days. We have to have right motive and intention. We know what to do in your town. We know that there are certain people you will invite. You will give this money to. Awujale of Ijebuland, for example, Anglican diocese, the chief imam, we have given you so and so. How many traditional rulers under you? How many districts? How many states? How many local districts under you? Give and give us results. We know. We know. We can only use this medium to appeal that prevention is the only thing we need now. And we must also give people palliative. You can't lock people down and you are not giving them palliatives. Okay. And to give these palliatives, we know the right thing and the right way to do it.
Okay.
It is not
Dr.
complex.
You spoke about the lockdown, which was recently extended till the end of the month. Now, people are forced to sit at home. Is there any way that this lockdown can impact the mental health of people?
So many ways. So many ways.
Now we're talking about those who are not infected.
Yes, so many ways. In fact, as a matter of fact, there are so many emotional and psychological sequelae to being forced. Number one, you are taking source of livelihood from someone. We already understand this principle of everybody going out to find their daily meal, daily food, daily source of income. That is called short. So when that is called short, the tendency for every human being is to survive. So you are steering survival instinct in people. And when survival instinct is being steered, it can go through any ways. People can displace their hunger, and then the public havoc can occur.
Which is happening.
Which is happening now. People display. That's when they now remember that they don't have good leaders, even if the leaders have been good. That's why they do. Because of this, you may just have ordinary 2 weeks to that because the survival instinct, mass flow theory, must come to play. And that is why. So people destroy because it's a displacement theory. Now, apart from that, people are not sure of their job again. Oh, don't come again. We've now devised another way which we can run our business. So even post-COVID, how many people will still retain their job? Economic depression is facing us. People are likely going to downsize. Companies will likely lose many of their staffs. This uncertainty can trigger acute stress, can trigger sleeplessness, can trigger depression. Apart from that, you're at home. Some people, they have been in an abusive relationship, physically abusive partner, and they use this job and going out as a coping strategy. Now they are faced with that, in quote, monster of a wife, monster of a husband. Some of the children are actually monstrous. They disregard the parents. They are on drugs. They are on substance. Now there's no way to get drugs. So the punching by the anger is on the parents. Why? Because they don't have access to some of these things and all these nefarious activities. So you have spiral and cascades of events going on around in every home now. Apart from that, you ask me to stay at home. Many people, all this social distance is anti-mental health. We preach social connection. The word itself is too distant. The word itself is me cool, you cool. Everybody to himself. And that is before COVID, we were moving around to social integration. Don't be in your own world. Don't be lonely. Loneliness causes depression and suicide. To get people, and yes. Now you are saying what? Social distance. Social distance, be running. So we are quickly changing the narratives now. Okay, social distance, but not emotional distance. That's our new songs now. Don't call people, how are you? Check up on your neighbor if it is through the window. Just do like this. And you see overseas, you see people play music, and you know all the neighbors will be hearing. That is their own way of trying to just say, let us have emotional connection. Buy data, no money to buy data, they are not working anyway. So you see a lot of problems that can emanate. And that is why the earlier the better we combat this through good prevention, and we go back to our normal lives. But while we are there, palliatives and all this psychosocial support is very key.
Now, Professor.
Aleo, just before you do that, information just reaching us. This is for the security operatives. So please reach out and head towards Ojo Lasso Road. We understand there's a fracas there, some fighting and burning of property. If the security operatives could just head out in that direction and see if they can put things in order there immediately. Again, It's Ojo Lasso Road.
Professor, we understand that one of the symptoms of this COVID-19 is the loss of taste and loss of smell, sense of smell and sense of taste. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. You're very correct. What we'll call anosmia and agousia, which is loss of sense of smell and that of taste. These are one of the symptoms of this illness that is ravaging the entire world. And unfortunately, not so much has been said about it, because it is something that would be very, very useful, as our team has proposed, and the body of ENT surgeons across the globe. I am primarily an ENT surgeon, ear, nose, and throat surgeon, otherwise otorhinolaryngologist, before studying public health and doing all that I'm doing right now. So usually the organism, which is the coronavirus 2, SARS coronavirus 2 organism, the port of entry, as we all know, is through the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. That's through the nose, simply put, and through the mouth. But this organism has some special features. If you take a look at it, why it's called corona, as almost everybody knows, it looks like crown. But those spikes on it are adaptive mechanisms that helps it to sit in nicely into the system, get adapted, and start replicating. So those spikes are the spike protein, those stuff hanging out like thorns on top of it. So this spike protein, incidentally, at the respiratory tract is where you have a lot of the receptors, angiotensin-converting enzyme 2, that is susceptible to this S protein attaching to it. It fits in there. And once this happens, the transaminase enzymes that are within and around the surfaces of the mucosa, that's the special skin that is lining the nose and the airways, will break down the S protein, help it in replicating. It multiplies in its number. And before you know it, you see replication of hundreds and thousands of this organism within the nose and the throat and the airways. And since the nose is usually the common point of entry, in the nose you also have two special types of skins there. The one we call the respiratory epithelium and the one we call the olfactory epithelium. The olfactory epithelium is the one that senses smell in the nose. It is relatively smaller when you compare its size to the respiratory one. And around this respiratory epithelium that surrounds it, it forms an island around it. There's a lot of this angiotensin converting enzyme, which is the binding site of this organism. So that's why it multiplies in its number. Then the supporting cells of the olfactory epithelium will have plenty of these receptor sites, where these organisms also live and multiply in its hundreds and thousands. So within a very short time of an individual inhaling or taking in this organism or getting in contact with it within this area, it multiplies and affects this olfactory epithelium, which is very small in number. It colonizes it. And before you know it, there will be a lot of inflammatory reactions going on there. There will be swelling, what we call edema, around that area. So this olfactory epithelium is the one that senses the smell. So the swelling around there will coat around it. It will not allow the chemicals that are within there that we call the chemoreceptors on the dendrites to be able to sense smell, which are particles of different aroma and organisms that are in the air. So you won't be able to pick it up again and perceive it. And it is also known that this organism is what we call neurotropic, which means it follows the nerves. So it easily ascends through the olfactory nerve, which permeates what we call the cribriform fossa, which is perforation that connects the nose to the brain, and can easily ascend through this pathway. It goes there, it affects the olfactory bulb, which is finally the organelle up there in the brain that help us to interpret smell. And before you know it, if there's a direct attack on this, it affects it, that is knocked off, it is paralyzed, and we won't be able to smell, you know. And there's also this pathway and mechanism that we know that people who have died of this COVID, a lot of them who have gotten themselves, did some autopsy to study the cause of death and the mechanism of, we realize that encephalitis is also there, that this organism has the ability of permitting the blood-brain barrier. So it can enter into the cerebrospinal fluid. So if it gets there, encephalitis can happen, and this affects the part of the brain that's observed for smell. And this is knocked off. You know what? The interesting thing here is that this can happen weeks earlier, even before the patient starts having the typical symptom of somebody who have COVID-19. All this nose running, fever, cough that we all know. This sense of smell and loss of taste can happen earlier. Coming to taste. Taste is also a function of smell. Whereas the sense of smell is lost, sense of taste is also affected. Because aroma is just a combination of when you take in something, the nose has this ability to have a mix, have a connective pathway. It's only what you can smell that you can taste. So once the sense of smell is completely lost, that of taste also follows. And evidence has shown that in some climes, in areas where these illnesses have taken tolls, like Italy, like in China, and even Spain, up to 30 to 40% of individuals present in this mannerism become the first point of presentation. And what are we talking about? Our society today, the American Academy of Otorhinolaryngology Society, which I'm also an ESCO member, the Otorhinolaryngology Society of Nigeria, indeed the British Association of Otorhinolaryngology, they have come with a position paper that this should be recognized as an early symptom, so that anybody who presents with this, it will be a red flag that will help us to even detect this disease early enough. And knowing full well that each individual that loses this sense of smell and taste will know within yourself. So you self-quarantine or you self-isolate, whichever word we prefer, you know, and raise a red flag to authorities so that they'll come test such an individual early enough. In so doing, that will even help us in identifying carriers earlier than we're doing today. So it's a wake-up call, it's something that we have to integrate. I read through the paper that was released yesterday by NCDC, fantastic policy, you know, very bulky, but I spent sleepless hours to go through. You know, it's all there, a lot of things were cascaded, how they'll be able to do more and more testing. And that is the way to go. That we're having rises in incidences today is connected to massive testing. Not necessarily that people are getting more infected, but we need to do massive testing. And this is one way of even picking cases early. It was not there in the policy, and I don't blame them because WHO is still looking at this. They have not wholly adopted it, but I can tell us that it's something that is real. Even some cases that we have locally here can attest to it, that they had some sense of loss of smell and taste earlier on before even the symptoms manifested. Some persist all through the illnesses, and some will disappear over time. And in such individuals that have this, a lot of them get worried. If they can't perceive anything around them, they can't taste anything. Life is just like you are living in a conundrum. You are living in a sack. You are enclosed there. And of course, we know that there's also ways of managing this afterwards to ensure that you help individuals to regain this loss of sense of smell and taste back.
Prof,
so
staying with you,
that we should all take very, very seriously.
Prof, can you just tell us, when you have a loss of the senses while you're doing your self-isolation, because somebody hearing this now might go like, oh, I'm so scared, but is that something that can be done real quick? Because is it necessarily the coronavirus, or is there something that can be done real quick to take care of this kind of situation?
Yeah, Nota, thank you very much. It is very important. You know, science is an evidence-based thing. It is also worthy of note to mention here that individuals that even have some common colds can lose sense of smell and taste. But we are talking of the percentage and the representation here. It is known that in about 10 to 15% of individuals that have other causes that will lead to common colds will lose sense of smell. Whereas you have up to 30% in some climes, up to 50-something%, according to evidence coming from the United Kingdom in COVID-19. So it's like something that is very much bonded and synonymous to this. It is a red flag. If it comes, we should be calm. But I would suggest that such an individual should self-isolate himself or self-quarantine himself, at least from the immediate family, once you notice that there's this sudden loss of sense of smell and loss of sense of taste. Self-isolate yourself, raise red flag, make phone calls to NCDC. Let them come and take your nasal swab. So this class of people should be incorporated into those that qualify to be, tested whenever such symptoms comes up. We cannot overtest. Now we're talking of even community transmission, whereby we even randomly check communities. But this one is much, much more specific when you compare it to some other symptoms. So it should be preached. Everybody should be communicated that anybody who has this transient and sudden loss of sense of smell or taste should raise some suspicious flag, make phone call, make adequate preparation, assume within yourself that there is a possibility that you could have, caught up with this virus, which of course is not a death sentence. We should not forget that what we're seeing across our country right now appears to be the mild form of it, which is how God does his own work. Nature has a way of protecting the weak, Inherent factors within our
Thank you, Professor. We have to wind down now.
Is discussion for...
Thank you, Professor. We have to wind down. Quickly, Dr. Ognubi, your final word in half a minute.
Well, it is important that we understand now that community transmission is here. No longer a history of have you traveled or did you move near someone that traveled. Someone who moved near someone that traveled and did it may have contacted you and you may have had it. Okay. Number two, psychosocial support. It is not only about symptoms of physical manifestation, but emotional and psychological symptoms are key in COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Ogunubi, lecturer and consultant psychiatrist at the University of Lagos, who was in our studio in Lagos, and we had Professor Titus Ibekwe, professor of otorhinolaryngology, who joined us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you very much for staying with us.